original phone.
Court is in session with Ryan in Sacktown on If You Don't Like That. Now, Ryan in Sacktown.
Oh, must be Ryno. And now it is that time. Your time to meet.
Who would have thought that we would be talking about a possible 3-0 start to this homestand for your Sacramento Kings, coming off of biggest win of the year last night, second biggest win of the year, whatever you want to call it. It was a win, and it was a step forward. Guys that need to step up for this team to make any type of run past the play-in. You saw it for 48 minutes. Can they do it again tonight? Some familiar faces in the G1C. Kevin Huerter returns back to Sacramento. We'll talk about him and his Bulls, who are 6-4 in their last 10. They played last night as well. So both teams on equal footing. We get down to it right now. We'll hear from Coach Christie, too, on the other side. Welcome to the pregame show.
Late nights on the screen, hey, it's Grant and Ryan. We bleed purple, talking hoops, never lying. Sacramento Kings, we rise and we fall. If you don't like that, then you don't know ball. Jerry sitting with the stories of the game, spilling all the truth, driving legends insane. From the Cow Palace days to Arco's roar, this town's heart beats on the hardwood floor. If you don't like that, turn away now.
Kings ride strong and proud. Yes, indeed. Give me a woo! Kings basketball back at you tonight here on If You Don't Like That. Don't forget, we're here all night. Jerry Reynolds, halftime, right with us, talking about the first half. Jerry thought the Kings were going to be competitive last night. He was right. He knows all. That's why he is the one and only post-game. Don't forget about that either. What a cool post-game show last night. We had a lot of fun with that one, and I'm not even talking about the basketball part of it. We had some really cool calls, so looking forward to being back with all of you after this one tonight. Some breaking news coming out, maybe not breaking per se, but let's get to it. Kings Bulls, you know that one. It's on the schedule. Kevin Huerter, Big Red, whatever you want to call him. He is back at the G1C. Now, go figure. I'm sure his jump shot's going to be perfect tonight, right? Knows the rims, knows how the Kings are going to guard him. I think it'll be fun. But regardless, I think it's going to be a good game. I do believe the Kings should win this game, but we can get into that in a little bit. As for the breaking news, Jake LaRavia available. So you got some fresh legs for Doug Christie, something that is a welcome sight with Domantas Sabonis still out. Also, Zach LaVine, as announced earlier today, will be playing tonight. Kevin, we have touched on back in the building. And here is my question, and I posed this earlier today on my show, The Kings Court, at 2 p.m. Whenever the Kings have certain guys out, they play different styles, which isn't untrue of many other NBA teams. That happens, but sometimes we see a better version of the Kings when the ball moves, and that was certainly the case last night. So how can Doug Christie find the right balance? It's a teeter-totter. There's all the offense on the bottom. There's all the defense, the hustle. And I'm not saying Malik Monk, DeMar, and Zach don't hustle. I'm not trying to imply that. But the specialty, the special sauce of their game is offense, right? So there's your defensive guys, and look what they did for you last night. How can Doug find something in the middle? What are your suggestions? Can you get the minutes down a little bit for some of the starters and mix in different combinations which allows the Kings to do some more switching. We'll get our first idea of that tonight here in just about 45 minutes when they tip this one off. Also breaking earlier today, some changes to the national television schedule. Kings going to be picking up a couple of games on NBA TV. So we might as well get to it right now. Listen to Doug Christie, who met with the media just about 30 minutes ago, give or take. Here's what Doug had to say about tonight.
Good. You know, kind of interesting tonight with Zach and DeMar and Kevin all in the building. I'm just curious, kind of your perspective as a player, these like so-called revenge games, like how you felt as a player, how they might feel, you know, going up against their former teams.
Spicy. Yeah, spicy. It's always interesting, those ones. I mean, you know, whenever you're in a place, you feel like you're not wanted, but then when you go to a place, you feel like you're wanted. It's just kind of how it goes. The point is you got to control your emotions, and you gotta go out and play a good ball game. You want to show people that where you were at, what you're about, and obviously you're rocking with your new team. But yeah, spicy.
Doug, when you play a game like yesterday, right, and just a fantastic performance, is there any sort of like high that you kind of you come down from to get ready and prepared for another team that's just, you know, not on the same tier as Cleveland?
You know, we respect everybody, but I think that what you're speaking to is the mindset that, in my opinion, has been here for a long time, and it's something that doesn't need to be. You respect every opponent, and we're trying to build a culture that has a faceless opponent, and that means that every night you're playing against yourself. Can I replicate the intensity and effort, not the result, because the result is always different, even the greatest miss and a lot of different things. But can my focus be there? Can my intensity and my communication and all the things that I can control, can those be there? That's what you're speaking to, is the difficult part. And for me, that's where we need to graduate to. And no better time and no better opportunity than another game back-to-back in the NBA.
What's up, sir?
How are you?
I'm good. Back to that initial question about facing former teams, you were asked as from a player standpoint. I'm curious, you said harness emotions. Was that as from a player standpoint or from a coaching standpoint? Do you look at it as maybe trying to tap into something there as an ingredient to add to something, and or as a coach, do you want it to be more harnessed?
I always want them to play with emotion, but at the same time be able to have a grasp on it. I don't think I need to motivate them anything. When you're going to play a team that you were at, you don't need any motivation. And if you do, you probably don't belong in our league. So, yeah.
Coach, when you go back and look at the video from last night's game, did Devin unlock something for you? Did he show you something that you didn't already know about him besides just, you know, the points and the dunks in the minutes?
No, I think that I understood who Devin was and is. My only thing is that he begins to do it within the parameters of what we want as a team, meaning like when he went to the G League, it was about running the team, guarding the best player. Anything other than that is like, great, you know, you score 35 points.
Boom. What have I been talking about the last 2.5 seasons with this Sacramento and Stockton collaboration? Doug just spelled it out perfectly. When they send the guys down, what they have done, what the secret sauce, man, I need to like trademark that somehow. I say secret sauce so much these days. The secret sauce between the Kings and the Stockton Kings is just that. They're not rolling the basketball out there and saying, go score 35 points. They are simulating situations. They are putting guys in spots where they need to improve, and in turn, they are developing guys Not a coincidence with Keon Ellis. Same thing with Mason Jones to a degree. TT, for me, is the next project. He's on a 10-day contract right now, but that's what they did with Devin. Now, the NBA and the G League, two drastically different things in terms of the speed, in terms of the competition, in terms of what Devin Carter would be facing with ball pressure. But there are certain guys like Ty Washington, who is on Phoenix's G League team, and he's on their roster as we speak right now, playing or at least getting to dress with the team. Guys like that, that is a good simulation. That will give you a taste of it. Devin Carter by no means is ready to step into the backup point guard role, but this needs to be a street where both parties meet in the middle. And what I mean by that is the onus is on the coaching staff to also put Devin Carter in positions to be successful. And what I mean by that is don't ask Devin Carter to bring the ball up from baseline to baseline. If you're going to do that, get him going downhill. I think something that we have all seen very, very clearly with our own two eyes is when he goes downhill, he's quick, he's explosive, and that's when he makes good decisions with the basketball. Also spotting up, good there as well. I've been very impressed also with his rebounding. So the coaching staff needs to, that secret sauce in my cakes. Come on, baby cakes. Baby cakes, you don't actually make cakes, do you? Do you? You know, my mother-in-law, she makes cakes. So I know some of those secrets, baby cakes. Like, you remember back in the 90s when, like, that masked guy came on Fox? It's like, these are the secrets to magic. And he, like, spelled them all out, or they did a wrestling one as well. Don't make me expose your secrets. I know some of them. I'll just say one word: frosting, baby cakes. Not just on top of the cake. Frosting, my friend. Anyways, Doug working, back to the point, Doug working in Devin Carter, and also just encouraging the young man, encouraging some of, no, Donald, no. Encouraging some of these guys to play without looking over their shoulder. I think part of that when Jake LaRavia started getting minutes here in Sacktown, he's kind of looking over, kind of also getting used to the program. But Devin Carter not looking over his shoulder last night. But as for the offense, one of the biggest things that jumps off to me is the passing. And I'm not talking about whether it is a turnover or whether it's an assist. I'm talking about passes being crisp, passes being in the right spots, coming to guys' shooting pockets. That is partially responsible for some of these higher three-point percentage nights that you have seen out of the Kings the last few games. Keegan Murray's been getting good passes. A lot of the other guys have been, that is it. You know what? That's true too, baby cakes. Especially now, okay, here we go. This is how the show gets off track sometimes. Especially with the funfetti cakes. You got to put the pudding in the funfetti cakes. Baby cakes, what do you know about the cake skin when you shave that off? The crispy part, then you dip that in the frosting. See, I've been around the block with my mother-in-law. I mean, she makes high-level cakes. High-level cakes. Anyways, back to basketball as we get you ready for this one tonight. Making sure the passing's on point. I always say 28 assists. The Kings are going to have to do that tonight. But now Doug has an interesting challenge. How do you incorporate some of what you saw last night into tonight with different personnel, specifically Jake LaRavia, which isn't as big of a deal to me, but Zach LaVine? And it's the question I asked last night on the post-game show. Do the Kings win that game last night if Zach LaVine plays? With no disrespect to him, it's just simply a stylistic question because Devin Carter probably would not have gotten as many minutes. So can Doug Christie find a way to get this team to go more up-tempo, give them a couple of different looks? And also, if you want to be pressure first, if you want to be in the other team's face, then do constant substitutions. If you're confident in your rotation or at least a certain number of guys on that bench, get them rolling through so you always have fresh legs to rely on. But speaking of last night, it truly was a night of beauty, an unexpected night for the Kings and the fan base. I'm so happy for all of you, especially those that got to be in the building for that one. The game turned around in the third quarter. That is what changed things for the Kings. The hustle really rose to the top in the third quarter. Guys diving on the floor, but I want to point out some certain statistics that really jumped off the page to me. The shot distribution, how even it was. You had Keegan, who was 3 for 3. 2 of those were 3-pointers. You had Keon Ellis, who was also 3 for 3 in the third quarter. 2 of those also 3-pointers. Devin Carter, 3 of 4 in the third quarter with 2 3-pointers. He was 2 of 3 from beyond the arc. The Kings in the third quarter shot it at a 70% rate from beyond the arc. 70%. Now, Cleveland, best shooting team in the NBA from beyond the arc. They only shot it at 33% in that third quarter. Another stat that jumped off the page to me, the Kings were a +6. Yes, a +6 overall on the offensive boards last night. And at halftime, they only had 10 points in the paint. They end up scoring 38 points in the paint in the second half. So a lot of good stuff to build on. A night that you hope you don't have a letdown for the most part, but I think that there is certainly something here on a homestand that many of us had very low expectations for, that the Kings might be able to hang their hat on. And more importantly, the Kings' destiny is pretty much set. If you're a fan out there saying, okay, we might get the 8 seed, we might get the 7 seed, I think that has moved past the Kings. This time, playing difficult opponents, coming into an East Coast road trip after this homestand, and then finishing off your season with 3 games at home, all of these games are about figuring out how to make this team peak at the right time for that 2-game sample size, which is the play-in. Can the Kings win 2 games in a row? And how do you handle Domantas Sabonis and his injury and him coming back? Doug Christie again earlier tonight.
Or whatever, great. He can do that. But for us and for him to contribute at this level, he needs to get us into sets and do everything that you saw him do. Like, that's who he is, and that's who he can be, and he can do it on a really high level. Now he just needs to learn how.
Let's be fair, though, really quick. Devin Carter didn't get the Kings into a ton of sets last night. I would say it was more transition, which is great. That's what I would rather see. And when it's transition, that's the other thing. The pace tonight has got to be high. Keep the pace high. When the pace is high, the Kings play better.
How to put that into a professional package. And what I mean by that is there's another game tonight. So you put that one in your pocket and you move on. You don't relish in it. It is what it is. People that'll go on all different social media, they'll see all the incredible highlights that he was able to deliver. But taking that next step for him is to back that thing up.
Doug, last week we saw your team struggle a little bit as far as like force and sort of matching the intensity of the opponent. Then this week they look like they're not only matching, but they've got more than what their opponents have. How are you trying to feel your way through this with your team when they have it one night, when they don't, and the next?
There's only been a few times that has happened, the 4-game losing streak like that. And I told him, that's not us. The conversation that we had, I think, kind of established some things that we needed to have conversations about. And in the last 2 games, they've come out and played well. Are we always going to play well? No, but we can always play hard. That is something that we not compromising on that part. So you bring that, we live with the results. You make shots. Sometimes you're a little sloppy with the basketball. I'm not happy about that part, but I know one thing is defensively, we can be physical. We can pick up. We can touch people. We can make people irritated. We can turn them over. We can make them feel us consistently. And that's more than any making a whole bunch of jump shots, because sometimes you can make a whole bunch of shots and you really didn't play a good game, but you made shots. And people would probably argue with me, but I would rather the consistency of us playing at a certain level than relying on us making shots all the time.
Well, here's the problem. The Kings did not make very many shots there in the first quarter. It was a very slow first quarter last night. But when you look at the Kings starting lineup, and what you're looking at right now is Chicago's numbers for the season. We're going to go through them in a second. But punching first, hitting first, Doug's right. We've said this for a long time. It doesn't matter who's across the court from the Kings. The Kings have to beat the Kings first. That's the first and foremost thing for a Kings victory. But the starting lineup that Doug's using right now isn't exactly conducive to the Kings punching first, hitting first, a fast style of play. It's actually kind of the opposite. So what you need to hope for, and this is where Doug needs to get a little bit more craftier with the substitutions, is that first unit hitting shots right off of the bat. And then it is a steady punch in the face as Keon Ellis comes into the game, as Devin Carter comes into the game, as Jake LaRavia comes into the game, and so on and so forth. Don't forget about Trey Lyles. I think he has been playing extremely well and scrappy. So that is, Doug's got to be able to ride this thing like a wave. He's got to understand the flow of the game. And I will say this, for somebody that is a first-time interim head coach, because of the type of player that Doug Christie is and was, he should understand that flow better than anybody else, because he was the epitome of punch first. He was the toughness of that starting lineup for the Kings. So he understands how important having that aspect on the court is. And the other thing, too, that is just straight facts. There's no way to sugarcoat it, pun intended, baby cakes, is that you can't do everything the Kings want to do defensively with the normal starting unit. The switching is much more difficult with Levine, DeRozan, Monk. You put Monk out there with Ellis, LaRavia, Carter, you have guys that can switch at almost every position. In fact, I would argue you put Trey Lyles out there too. All four of those guys can switch, which causes chaos for the other team. So a lot of good stuff there. And we'll talk about the Bulls really quick. What do they do well? What do they not do well? Kobe White, that's their guy. He plays really good basketball, solid point guard. He has had some big games against the Kings in the past. They're going to jack up a ton of three-pointers. They shoot the second most in the NBA, as you see right there. So the Kings are got to be able to drive them off the three-point line a little bit. You cannot have one of those Golden State nights. You cannot have one of those New York Knicks nights where they are record performances for the other team. Chicago does not get to the free throw line that much, which means they don't like to be physical. If you look at that, 30th in the NBA in free throws attempted. So there is a good chance for the Kings to bring that punch tonight, especially considering second night of a back-to-back. Also, 20th in the NBA in turnovers. Turn their heinies over. Got to keep them off the boards, though. Second in defensive rebounding, something the Kings have done pretty well over the past few games. Yes, I'm a big Kobe guy. I love Kobe. And here's what I would say about this Kings team. I shared this on the earlier show as well. In 7 games since the All-Star break, 7 wins, the Kings' average margin of victory is 17.9 points. Let me repeat that, 17.9 points. And in those 7 wins, they're averaging 29.6 assists and only 12.9 turnovers. In the Kings' 6 losses since the All-Star break, their average margin of loss is 17 points. They're only averaging 23.8 assists and 16 turnovers. So it speaks to the ball movement. You got to have 28. Say it again, 28 assists tonight to win this basketball game. And you got to have the balance as well that we are talking about with this team now that you got a couple of guys back. Let's get back to the comments, get you guys involved. Tim Ryan suggests you listen to post-game interviews of the opposing team. I do that a lot, Tim. I appreciate you bringing that up. I have not done it as much lately, so thanks for picking me up here. A lot of good takes from Kenny Atkinson and Mobley and other opposing players. Kings journalists ask them good questions. Good job, Tim. I will make sure that I am doing more of that. Love when people pick me up like that. Edward, I like how Doug coaches. Is he an X and O's coach? No, but his fire and mentality is what the Kings need. Yeah, and you know what I need more out of him, though, is a little bit more fire with the officials, a little bit more intensity with the officials. If you ask your players to back off, not talk to them, just play, then you got to be up a little bit more in the officials' grills, in my opinion. I think JV will have a better impact in this game defensively. JV had a double-double last night. That is actually going to be a very interesting matchup tonight because he's going to be opposite Vucevic. So what's that going to look like? And they're very similar players, long, lengthy. Is it Vucevic? I hope I said that right. Let me get back to my main screen as we get back to it. Yes, he's going to be opposite Vucevic tonight. So I'm hoping that JV can get the better of that battle. And here's the other thing, too. I think the Kings can get guys, especially your bigs, into better positions to start possessions. I don't think that's too hard. Jerry Reynolds has been a huge advocate of trying to bring JV up to the elbow, maybe bring Trey Lyles, Keegan Murray up to the elbow, because they're actually a threat from there. You can run your cuts off of that. When you have JV 27 feet away from the hoop doing a DHO, nobody's going to guard him and actually think that he's going to shoot that three. So the little stuff like that, the missed dunk, look, I think now it's up to like 27,000 views on what I posted about that. And I completely stand by it. It has nothing to do with Katie personally. It's just another unfortunate example of excuses that this fan base is way too educated and smart to see through. There was nothing about Markelle Fultz's legs that caused him to miss that dunk. 7.5 minutes of straight gameplay did not cause him to miss that dunk. Anybody with half of a basketball mind and a quarter of basketball IQ saw Markelle Fultz went like this and he tried to pump it. He tried to make it fancy. He didn't need to do that. So it was unfortunate, but the Kings were still able to bounce back. Donald hopping in. I think Levine works better with Sabonis rather than JV, but I don't know. Just make plays. Here's what I think about Levine. I just think Levine, you let him operate in his own areas. I think when you bring players towards him, and you'll see him commonly deny the screens, it just causes bad spacing, and then sometimes he'll try to force passes in very small areas. I think Zach is just better off ISOing alone, clear out, go 1-4, give him some space. New segment idea, comparing to De'Aaron. Why do we want to talk about De'Aaron? Got nothing to talk about with De'Aaron other than that he is having surgery and out for the rest of the season. Trey is the man with the plan. I agree. I've been impressed with the way Trey's played. I don't know if the Kings will retain him next year, but been very impressed. So what did y'all think of the camera angles last night? Has everybody recovered from the camera angles? Anybody having double vision? Anybody call an attorney after last night? Anybody? I'm just curious. I hope the Kings do not do that again tonight. Be traditional. Isolate Zach. Donald agrees with me. Kevin Herter returns tonight. Yeah, I'm happy for Kevin. Look, you think about Kev and what he went through here in Sacktown. he was a little bit of a scapegoat for the better part of a season, if not a season and a half. I felt for Kev going through the injury, shooting struggles, and here's the complete wild card that none of us, unless you are in a similar profession, can relate to. Every day you wake up, you don't know if you're going to be in the same city, living in that same city. He was the subject of every single trade rumor for the better part of a year. So I've got nothing but love for Red Velvet. I'll be happy to see him back in the building tonight, although I hope the rims are unkind to him. You look at the minutes that were played last night. Let's go over this really quick. It was a loss to Phoenix. Of course, they had to lose to Phoenix. You couldn't beat Phoenix, Kevin. Come on, my man. But this is my guy. If you haven't had a chance to look at him, Modest Buzelis is a heck of a young talent. I love this guy. He was in the dunk contest, by the way. He did not do well in the dunk contest, but Modest Buzelis is going to be a name you are going to hear in the future. He only had 5 points last night. I expect him to be a little bit more active tonight. He's a fun player to watch. Ton of personality, too. As for the rest of the starters, Trey Jones gave him 12 last night. Kobe White, that guy, 24. Kevin Huerter, 15. He's been shooting the ball better. Patrick Williams coming off the bench for them. But as we go back to the injury reports tonight, some of those guys are going to be out for the Bulls. Let's get back to our injury report if we have it. There we go. So the Bulls tonight without Lonzo Ball, without Josh Giddey. So more Kobe White minutes indeed. So what are your expectations for tonight? Do you expect a win? Do you expect a letdown? If the Kings come out and dominate, are you feeling much better about this team? You feeling the same about this team? Also, what are we putting the over-under at for Kevin Huerter threes? Over under 3.5. How many threes is Kevin Huerter going to have tonight? Let me know. And who's going to be the wild card for the Kings? Who is going to be the wild card? I've got a couple of names circled, but I want to see who you guys have. Close game. Yeah, I think it will be a close game. No Josh Giddey. Yes, indeed. He is not playing at all. Hey, don't forget about Portland. In fact, we better talk about that for a second. We might as well hit it. They very well, depending on what happens, could creep into the play-in. They're kind of this year's Houston. Houston got really hot last year, and if you remember, Phoenix's schedule the rest of this way, hardest in the NBA. So can Phoenix keep that up and keep an eye on those Blazers? They're only 2 games back right now in the loss column of Phoenix. So Haunted Horse, can you imagine Haunted Horse and the junk he'd be talking? There was a Kings Blazers play-in game. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say Gibby? Thank you for correcting me. Giddey, Josh Giddey. Cake by the okay, you guys are just out of control now. Defense. Huerter will get 3, 4 at the most. Okay, so that's why I said 3.5 is the over under. Which way are you going? 3.5 the over under. I'm gonna go over. I think Kevin's gonna have more than 3. I think he's gonna have at least 4 tonight. Malik Monk, wild card. Malik's been playing well as of late. No doubt about that. Shaden Sharp. Look, Tay, they are ahead of schedule. They are very much ahead of schedule. So I got to give them credit. By the way, the Sacramento Kings, since the All-Star break on 0 days rest, let's give you some numbers. They are 0-2. 0-2 on 0 days rest, but there's only been 2 games, so we'll give them that. Field goal percentage on 0 days rest, 45%. 3-point percentage. This is the one that's consistently carried over for a couple of years on 0 days rest. The Kings are only shooting 27.3% from beyond the arc on 0 days rest. Keep an eye on that. Also, keep an eye on the 3-point attempts, 33 of them on 0 days rest. So if the three ball's not falling, can the Kings fall into something else? Can they get to the hoop, get to the rim? Free throws attempted, they're getting 23 on 0 days rest. Here's the bad number. The Kings are a negative 22.5 in the net rating column on 0 days rest. Now, we could flip that on its head, and we could go to Chicago. Let's see what they're doing on 0 days rest since the All-Star break. On 0 days rest, Chicago is, wow, they haven't had any 0 days rest. So this is their first second night of a back-to-back. So there you go. We'll see what that looks like for them. So new territory for them tonight. Devin Carter repeat. Look, I think he'll bring the energy. I don't know that you're going to see 16 points from Devin Carter, though. Donald, he'll get more than 4 if the Kings leave him wide open to help out. Stick to him. Make him dribble and make a decision. I've said this, and I said this last year. One of the more underrated parts of Kevin's game is we talk about Big Red, who I think should get nothing but love tonight in the G1C. Anybody disagree with me? Who's going to be booing Kevin Huerter? Nobody. I hope not. Well, I'm sure there'll be a knucklehead or two. But anyways, Kevin Huerter, sometimes when he's not shooting the 3-ball well, he really has worked on his game inside the paint. He doesn't always get to the paint effectively, but if he gets there or cuts there and gets the ball, he's pretty good around the hoop. So you got to be cognizant of that as well. Long guy. Look, the Kings know him as well as anybody else, just as Kevin knows the Kings as well as anybody else. So try to be physical with him and, push them out, push the Bulls out. The Kings are going to have to really blow up the pick and rolls tonight, and you've got to watch the backdoor cuts. You've got to watch the back doors. Like I said, Modest Bucelis, he will go backdoor and dunk on you all day if you're paying too much attention to the pick and rolls. But overall, this is a game the Kings should win. And by the way, Zach LaVine, I know some of you have said it in the chat, it's a return game for him. First game against his old team, Chicago. Still need to keep winning as keep winning as want the home court. Grant mentions Kings play better on the road, but I think the team is more traditional in doing better at home. The best way I can explain this, and I've tried to do it effectively over the past, since Doug Christie took over, to be quite honest, is I firmly believe that you have not seen success in the Golden One Center because of the style of basketball the Kings have played. So I think Tim is on to something. When you saw Doug Christie take over and there was more scrappiness, there was more defense, there was more diving on the floor, there was more of that, what I call that Sacramento crack, which is just that good old like elbow grease effort, does not take skill, just working your tail off. That's what gets the crowd going. To me, that's what makes Sacramento fans respond the loudest. It's the defense that turns into offense. And when that happens, it's an overwhelming home court advantage. And we've seen it happen a few times. In fact, last night was a very good example of it as well. So, all right, give me your final scores for tonight. What are they going to be? Or if you want to give me your halftime score, what do you think it's going to be? Cost us our first round. Okay. Rock. Okay. Well, Kevin played pretty well, the Beam team here. Got to give him that. Now, I'm not going to sit here like there's some people in the media that talk like, oh, he was a member of the team that broke the playoff drought. Well, let me tell you this. If we as a fan base are celebrating a team in 10 or 15 years for breaking a playoff drought, then we've got a major problem. So I don't put as much weight into that, but I do appreciate what he brought to that team and made that DHO very dangerous, made Sabonis better. in many ways. Kings, by the way, got to stay out of foul trouble tonight as well, especially with the Bulls, who do not get to the free throw line much. Again, they are last in the league at getting to the free throw line. So keep your hands to yourself, but be aggressive. Furious, 122, 109. Kings 125. Chicago 110. Yeah, let's look at this really quick. I think it's fair to look at. I want to see the defensive ratings for both teams as you guys keep putting your scores in. By the way, when my computer, because it has gone a little bit rogue ever since that Vivek dance got uploaded here, I think I've been hacked a little bit. If we start having computer problems, I'll let you know by playing this sound.
Dong, dong, dong. Yeah.
There you go. Having a computer problem there for a second. All right, Chicago, what do they do? Offensive rating, pace. They are third in the NBA. That's important. So that's good. I think that the Kings will benefit by that. So play that fast pace. Defensive rating, they are 24th in the NBA. So will it be a shootout? We will see. I tend to think so. I don't think it's going to be a grind out like we saw against the Knicks and some of the other teams. Yeah, it definitely hacked my system. Should have never done it. It was a bad choice. How will Zach play tonight? I hope Zach plays balanced. I don't want Zach to come out and be overly hyped up, overly aggressive. And by this point in his career, my guess is that he won't. He should be good. But you also have to remember this. If you're not aware, him and Billy Donovan, the head coach of the Chicago Bulls, they were not on speaking terms. In fact, DeMar DeRozan, while he was in Chicago, was kind of the conduit, the go-between between Billy Donovan and Zach LaVine. So if Zach's looking to shove it to anybody tonight, it's going to be Billy Donovan. So hopefully that does not take precedence and it's not overreactive and over hyper, but we'll see. In fact, it's time to get out, time to get you out to the game. Don't forget, by the way, Jerry Reynolds right back here, halftime. Can't wait to have him back. And Grant as well. We'll break down the first 24 minutes of basketball. Hey, it's not just a back-to-back for the team. It's a back-to-back for all you. Congratulations. You are the best fans in the NBA. Not many fans go as hard as you guys go. So good job. Second night of a back-to-back for the Sacktown fan base. The Kings crazy, the six men. We will see you back at the half. I expect the Kings to win, but I will be paying very close attention to Doug Christie's rotation tonight. We'll see you in about 24 basketball minutes. Enjoy the first half.